myself off mute. That would help. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Evermore podcast. That's a good way to start, isn't it?
Where's Chris?
We are back. Yeah, so we lose the host, and that's everything goes wrong. Oh dear, can't win. But now, good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's well. We're back. We are. I think I was going to say we're now up to our 49th episode of the Evermore podcast. So we're coming up on a year old next week, which is a huge milestone. And today, like I said, we're without Chris, who's on some warm weather training today. So he's off in different parts of the country. So it's the three of us tonight, and we've got some actual Newcastle content to talk about this week, which is nice. We've titled this, it's getting back to business. It's getting back to what we do best. So I've got PK and Carl back with us tonight. How are you doing, lads?
Yeah, good, mate. How are you?
Not too bad. We need to start this again so I don't make any cock-ups. That's the...
I'm good as well.
Yeah. Good. Glad to hear it. We'll kick off. And no better place to start, obviously, than the team are in Saudi Arabia. They are getting back to business, as we've put. They're into their warm weather mid-season World Cup training, however you want to put it. The lads are looking well, and they're putting in some work on the training ground and in the gym, and starting to get the squad back to fitness. So, we've seen some good pictures that are coming from their training camp, and there are some stories around sort of fitness, certainly with regards to Isaac. So, PK, obviously, what are your thoughts in getting back to some proper football talk again?
Can't wait. You know what? Last show I was on was pre-World Cup, and I was saying I can't buy getting into the World Cup, stopping Newcastle's season. But actually, I've quite enjoyed this World Cup. I've seen more games than I was anticipating watching. I've sort of quite enjoyed it. There's been some really shit games, but there's been some really entertaining games. And, it's been a joy to watch. The likes of Brazil, dare I say France, have been really good to watch. But yeah, this time in 2 weeks, I'll be in the pub about to leave to go and watch the fourth round of the League Cup. So, yeah, 2 weeks to go. I guess the players have had a little bit of a break, have they? And now they've got this warm weather training. I've seen some pictures today. I think they had an open session with fans, didn't they? A bit of a fans forum for fans that have gone over. It's quite a few Newcastle fans have gone over because they've got a game tomorrow, haven't they? Excuse me. So, yeah, I'm glad to get back again. It's been so exciting since the start of the season that I just can't wait for Newcastle to get cracking again. This World Cup to be done. This World Cup will be done on Saturday night for me, by the way.
Well, it's funny you say that because that's where I had us getting to. But it's
Me too.
I mean, I'd love it to go on more. And like you, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Carl, obviously the side starting to get back to the normal business now, and there are obviously friendlies. It's on Friday night that they play. Is it Al Hilal that they play
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow, yeah.
Is it tomorrow? Is it? Oh, I've lost my days. Yeah. I've written down friendly and then the 8th of December, and I've read friendly as Friday. And then obviously they've got Rayo Vallecano back at St James's Park. So it'd be good to see some actual football action again, won't it?
Yes. I think you remember one of the things Eddie Howe said was he wanted this little break to kick off like a mini pre-season. So obviously the players that have been in the World Cup will have been training, and some of them have been playing minutes, some of them have obviously been on the bench. So I think it's good that the lads who are in Riyadh are obviously getting up to speed now, and then obviously if, sort of a kickabout tomorrow, and then obviously a game in at St James's against the Spanish side. So I think it'll be good just to get, like you say, like PK said, just to get back and start, hopefully, kicking off like we did when we had a break, just getting back to the same intensity. And I've got no doubt that we will.
I think that I think in hindsight, I wasn't sure because we had this discussion pre-World Cup again. Will the break be good for us or will it kill momentum? I think in hindsight, looking at those last few games, we were shattered, weren't we? The intensity was crazy. We were shattered. I think the break's done us the world of good. Bruno's not had very many minutes for Brazil, which I'm a bit disappointed with, but and on the flip side, it's great. Callum Wilson seems to have picked up a minor strain. God knows what that means. We're going to come on to that, I think. Cher's coming home now, or whether he flies off to Riyadh, I don't know, or whether he just goes home. Not quite sure. Kual's finished and got minutes, which means he might get a work permit. Who knows? Who else we got? Obviously, Trippier played the first couple of games, so he'll be fairly fresh. I think Kyle Walker will come in again. Well, will continue against France just because of his pace. Yeah. And then Nick Pope's not getting a minute of football, which is all right with me. And Callum Wilson's had a little bit and obviously picked up that knock, but we'll just see how he is, I suppose. So, yeah, I can't wait for them to get back into it and obviously get through the quarterfinal of the Cup next, hopefully.
I think you're right. I think you touched on there about the lack of game time for those that at the World Cup as well, and that plays into Newcastle hand massively. I think you're right. You look at some of those performances towards the end, and even though the results were still coming, the players looked leggy. They looked like they were tiring. And the amount of intensity they've put into games, that was always likely to happen. And I think you're right. We talked about, do you want to break up the momentum? But I think just as a refresh, just to get everybody
mental refresh.
But even that, it's exactly right. So and it massively, I think, plays into Newcastle hands. You can start off gently. There was with a cup game before Christmas and come back on Boxing Day for the league at Leicester and then take it from there. And then you're straight into the window. So who knows what will come at that point. And you touched on some of the issues sort of coming out. As one of the things I wanted to sort of bring up were the potential sort of injury worries that might come. We've talked about Wilson's muscle strain. Now we don't know the extent of it, but these things do come up an awful lot. But there was the news about Isak as well, who wasn't likely to play this week because of injury. Do you think that's, and we've seen it before where it's maybe more than has been let on, or do you think this is just precautionary? Do you think this is just being cautious with him and just inching back in gently?
I think they're just easing him back in gently, to be honest. They might, I think it was Craig Hope had said that he's not going to get any game time either against Al Hilal or against Vallecano next week. But you'd think he might get 15 or 20 minutes, perhaps, just to, if it's 4 or 5 or 6-0 up or whatever against the Saudi team. Why don't you just give him 10 minutes of a little bit of action and let him stretch his legs? That's just the same as just getting a bit of training on the grass, really, for me. But maybe they have that slight concern over Wilson, and they're thinking, Christ, we don't need Isak to be injured as well.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think personally with that, I think it's what PK said. I think it's more about just making sure that he's obviously like fully fit to go, because what you wouldn't want is him coming back and then having a reoccurrence and then getting set back like 6-7 weeks. The games are going to be coming thick and fast. And I think, we've spoke on our own group about Callum Wilson and what does the future look like with him, because he's made of glass. So I think actually, people are saying what they're going to do if they have Isak and Wilson. But what we might actually find is that we might not play together that much, because it might be one of those things where it might be like a rotational point of view due to fitness and things like that. But if they're all fully fit, then it will be a difficult sort of decision for Eddie Howe to make, really.
Friend of the show, Kendall, put a tweet on yesterday and said, oh, God, Callum Wilson might be injured just as Isak's coming back. That gives Eddie Howe an easy decision to make again. So it's almost like Wilson was injured. We need to buy a striker. They went and bought Isak. He got 2 goals in 3 games. I think I'm right in saying.
Yeah.
Should have had more, but never mind. And then he got injured just as Callum Wilson was coming back again. So it's like, will both of them be fit at the same time? I think Chris put a very valid comment on earlier today. He was probably having his lunch outside St. Paul's Cathedral or whatever. And he just said, do we need to buy another striker in the summer that will become our number one striker? And he's probably got a point. Of course, when you've got Champions League football, it's easier to attract the bigger names in it. But he's probably right. Callum Wilson's made of glass, as we know. He's barely kicked a ball in the World Cup, and he's got an injury. I don't know.
It was always the worry, wasn't it? But obviously, guys in the comments as well, just let us know what you're thinking about this. We've got obviously people in there already. Don't forget, we are live doing this on a Wednesday night. So good evening, Roger. Welcome again. Welcome back, Gibbo. Nice to see you in the comments as well. And I think we've got El Stapleton there as well. So good evening. No problem with you being late. You've turned up, and our Chris is even in the comments as well. So good evening, Christopher.
That's my new microphone there, Chris, as well, smooth as glass. Am I as good as Dar yet? Boyo.
Not quite.
But Mark, do you not think, based on what you've said there about obviously what Chris had said about Wilson, the players that we've got at the moment have done exceptionally well. And as we said before, when we were just warming up, we were probably a couple of years at the moment. We're maybe we are slightly ahead of schedule, probably where the board wanted us to be. And this is with the players that we've got now. I'm not saying that get Champions League and you ditch Callum Wilson, but Callum Wilson's for the here and now. If we do get to a position like PK just said, then you attract different caliber of player. It might be that due to his injuries, due to him becoming potentially a squad player, then you bring other players in. So it may be that, depending on where we finish in the summer, if we were to somehow get Champions League football, I've got no doubt that we'd probably go in for another striker, because like you have just both said, you need a bigger squad to challenge on all fronts and to push up the league.
Yeah,
definitely. No, you're absolutely right. Sorry, PK, go on.
I was going to say, this is where we fall a little bit short, and as seen in the last cup game where where he rested 7, 8, 9 players or whatever, the squad players coming in at the minute are just that little bit short. Okay, we got through, but we got through on penalties. Those squad players are just that little bit short of being able to do a Brazil or a Manchester City, where you can rotate the players and you're not weakening any position. Whereas at the minute we've probably only got 14, maybe 15 first team players that you can sort of rotate on a regular basis without weakening the squad. Then you start to bring in, I mean, I'll include a Shelby in that in terms of weakening it, because I think he's cack, but I know some people like him. Or, Manquillo coming into right back's a problem. Lascelles coming in at centre back's a problem. Chris Wood coming in up front is a problem. So if you get those knocks and you get those injuries, we haven't got the depth yet. But the flip side, we're third in the league and we're only 2 windows into this project, I suppose. So it's early days, and we're just enjoying the ride more than any expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that gives us a good little segue actually in that, but into talking about transfers and things. And I know we've touched on in our group chat as well about do the club take the opportunity now to go, okay, we're in third, that they look at it and say, does this give us our best opportunity to be 2 or 3 years ahead of where we expected to be, and can we push on now? Do they go into January wanting to bring in another level of player now? Can they bring in, while they don't have European football, the type of player that will come in to improve the first 11 or massively improve the squad at this moment? Carl, what do you think?
It's a difficult one, because you hear daily. We just mentioned about the level of reporters and what they're likely to be drip fed now, which is probably very little than what it was when they first came in, for obvious reasons. But I think we are hearing all the time about FFP, and it's great to see, like, on a daily basis that we've got a new commercial relationship, whether that's for the tour, whether that's long term, but obviously this is the beginning. Someone said the other day at Man City, you've got over 100 sponsors, like individual sponsors, and to obviously compete, we're going to need to do the same, if not more. So yeah. I think for me, from a transfers point of view, I think we do, like PK said, we've got 14 players, 15 players at a push, and we probably need, I'd say, about 20 that you could slide in, especially. It might not be too bad like this season because we've only got usually one game a week. But I think, I think if we want to challenge, there's no reason why. I know we're saying about Champions League, I know where we are now, but the position that we're in, if we do strengthen and we do carry on playing the way we are, we could actually nick third. Do you know, which is crazy to think about. And obviously I don't want to get too carried away because I'd be happy with, the top 8 really when you analyze things and not be greedy. But I think it really does depend on what the board think. And I think none of us know what they're thinking. We know that they're very ambitious. And all I'll say is expect the surprise in the transfer window, probably later on.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there was the story today, wasn't there, about Eddie Howe and the side being invited to the chairman's house with his family and stuff, and the report of obviously Eddie Howe talking about that he talked to the players and saying, look, we've done well, but it doesn't stop there. And that level of push and ambition shown towards the players as well is a good sign. They're not just going to sit and rest on what they've got. They want to push on. So in terms of coming into the transfer window, that does seem promising in that regard. PK, obviously, we're a couple of people that mentioned in the comments there. Obviously, Juventus's money problems are well known. Is there an option to go for Vlahovic from there? I think Roger's got in there about the potential if Maddison is off the table to go for Trossard, who's out of contract, I think, in the summer as well. So that might be an option.
Yeah. I don't know if Trossard's really going to improve us. I'll be perfectly honest. Okay, he's better than Jacob Murphy and Ryan Fraser. He's not better than St. Maximum, not for me. Okay, he's had a decent start to the season, but I don't know if he really improves us and takes us to that next level. I think one player that we've spoken about is it Adel Rabiot, the French
Adrien Rabiot,
yeah, French. What I would call number 4, what Chris would call a 6. I think he's a Juve, and he's an outstanding footballer. Yeah. I don't know how old he is, but if Juve have got money problems, the whole bloody board of directors have had to resign. Whether they freeze their bank accounts, who the hell knows? But there could be some rich pickings for next to nothing. Regards to them, they could have some transfer window bans. Who knows what's going to happen? But there must be some players out there. But I think you're right. Carl said it himself. We're sitting pretty. We're definitely 2 to 3 years ahead of the curve. I keep saying it every time I'm on here. There was a 100. They've gone to Yasser Al Rumayyan, I think his name is, house yesterday. So there's 100 strong party gone over. Yeah. We'll just stick them in the servants' quarters, will we? I mean, it must be some house, my dear me. But they'll be schmoozing them up. Dan Ashworth, Darren Eales, they'll be schmoozing with them, won't they? Because I think genuinely they don't like getting beat, the Saudis. We know that. They're here to stay. And we're going to talk about this Man United nonsense later on. I think they can see this as I'm hoping, a massive opportunity here to get into the Champions League at the first time of asking would be sensational. I mean, if we get the Champions League, Eddie Howe is manager of the season, without a doubt. We were rock bottom, and I think it was this time last year that we got our first win of the season. And we're currently sitting on 30 points, right? It's just ridiculous. So there's one hell of an opportunity here of finishing in that top 4. Chelsea are no big shakes. Spurs are Spursy. We know that. Man United are starting to find a bit of form under whatever the Dutch chap's called. That's it, yeah. See, I've been out of domestic football for 2 weeks. You know what the hell I'm talking about. Arsenal are looking really strong and really good, but Jesus is now out for a few months, yes. He's just had an operation. And he's been, he scored 4 goals for them, and he hadn't scored for a while, but he's a real focal point up front for a mini, with Martinelli playing out wide. Whether they now have to go into the market and buy a striker themselves, if they've got the money to, again, I don't know. I think the thing that will stop us, as Carl had said, is fair play. But how many commercial deals have we signed in the last 3 or 4 weeks? Start with Monster, went to Saudi Air for the travel arrangements.
STC, Vov. Something else happened the other
today,
day.
yeah.
There's about 5 or 6.
Some online and offline gaming company today. I mean,
That's it.
Let's just say they're all giving us 10 million quid for the rest of this season. You've all of a sudden got 50 or 60 million quid. 70 million extra went into the coffers there. So they certainly know how to play the FFP game, should we say.
Yeah. And the talks, or the suggestion is that while they're out there, they're looking at the shirt sponsor as well. So that major shirt sponsors then move on, as we touched on in one of our news shows, about moving on from obviously the kit mega and obviously Fun 88, and that looks to be the way that it will go. They'll buy out of that deal to then bring in probably what we think it's Saudi, don't we?
I hope these can
get rid of that.
Yeah, I'll burn it live on Evermore if we do.
The contract's up with Fun 88 at the end of the season. There's no way they'll buy them out mid-season, because imagine all the people.
No, yeah, it'll already come in from. They've already said it'll start from next season. The new shirt sponsor. I think it's the Castor deal, which
they
is
will.
The issue.
They'll buy. They'll buy Castori off, and they'll go for a Nike, or they'll go for an Adidas. Hopefully
Adidas. And then I think there'll be a brilliant hashtag. It'll say reunited, and it'll have pictures hopefully of like the 96 shirt, the granite collar one, which is still very, 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 very popular, and they're probably the best one ever made. So I think that would be a great bit of marketing that they could probably do. And I know there's a couple of friends of mine, Richie on Twitter is just like, he's pretty much like drumming up the interest himself, tweeting Adidas like every day, say come on when we're getting back together. So it's quite funny.
I don't think any of that helps for January though, Mark, just to segue you back to what we're talking about.
No, you're right. I think that in terms of the deal, I think that's one thing they're looking at. The VO, is it VOV or VOV that they obviously the news has come out today about that, and that brings another avenue of revenue just from in terms of the sort of the online gaming sort of thing there. We touched on this when we did the cost of football last week, when we were talking about the Manchester City's esports kit. Is that an avenue that at some point they'll go down, because there's then an esports wing of Newcastle United? That's another potential revenue maker too. So these are all things that will come in the future. You're right, PK, they're not going to help for January, but they sow the seeds for then what's coming next, which is a selling point to players.
Remember though, FFP isn't just like a standing object. It's a continuous moving part over a 3-year cycle. So whilst you say it doesn't help in January, the foundations for what could happen now means that they can maybe release a little bit more capital in January to then obviously bring it back with the deals. I'm sure they're going to know, imminently what deals are going to be coming in and what they're going to be working on.
Yeah, no, I absolutely think you're right, and that's what they're working on constantly, isn't it? So, would you take Marcus Thuram on a? Well, he's out of contract as well in the summer, so he'd be a reasonably cheap deal in January. Would you take him?
That's Lillian Thuram's son, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I watched him the other night against France. Like he didn't. Yeah,
For
France. Sorry.
Where does he play? What position does he play?
Left-sided. He came on, didn't he?
Yeah, so he went in the middle. Left-sided for France there. At the moment, he's playing more through the middle for Mönchengladbach, and he's thrived there this season. He's been sort of shoehorned wider, so he can do it. In the last couple of seasons, when they've had like sort of Alessandro Plié, who've played through the middle, so he's kind of been pushed to one side. But he's played more centrally this season, and he's scoring goals. So he's definitely a multi sort of faceted threat as a forward, that he can play wide or play through the middle. And I think that's probably where Newcastle will want somebody to do. They can play those multiple roles, so that they can move them around where they want. So
isn't it funny how over the summer everybody was screaming that we needed a right-sided forward, and then Almiron's been incredible. St. Maximum's been injured most of that time. Unfortunately, I mean, St. Maximum's last game was last full game was the hat-trick of assists against Man City when he was phenomenal. But yes, we know he's inconsistent. But now everybody's saying, actually, we need somebody on the wide left. I'm not ruling out Maddison. I don't care what anybody says. I think they've got the 3 Newcastle lads whispering in his ear. He even said it himself, effectively, didn't he, on an interview that he had, that they've been having a little nibble at him. Of course, it's not up to Maddison. I think he would jump to come here. But I'm not ruling out us going in and having a little nibble on Maddison there.
No, I'd agree. I think El Silverton there is right. I think FFP is going to change where the amount that clubs can spend will change year on year. But I think with regard to Maddison, I think playing it down as much as possible. You've seen this before, where the media aren't probably getting as much information as they possibly once were, or they don't need to. They don't need their help. I think, Carl, we touched on it before we came on, didn't we, about using the media where it absolutely needs them, and then there's less information to come out now because they know they're in a much stronger position where they don't need the leak. They don't need that information to break.
If you look at the old Newcastle, even when we were out in the Championship, we were big news on Sky because there was always something going on. There was always some story that all of a sudden came out of nowhere.
Some drama.
Exactly. So we are a relatively big club. There's always something going on. Things are going well at the moment. We've got a well-balanced first time in ages. We've got a great club foundation-wise, and we just need to build now. But I think to be successful, you never hear about other clubs who are challenging, like all these stories. You get rumours, which we've said before, 95% of the stuff that we hear is all just probably made up guff. But I think it's quite telling change by probably the ownership, where, as you just said, Mark, they probably did use the guys not when they needed them. But now we've got a bit more of a professional feel. It's about let's keep our stories to ourselves, and then all of a sudden, bang, the people that actually announce them are Newcastle themselves.
We're dealing with some very successful business people here, both from Amanda and Murdad through to the Reuben brothers, who are more, I say, silent partners. They are in a way, other than Jamie being at all the games and that and loving it, to the Saudis. These people are very, very intelligent business people. We had Lee Charnley and Steve Bruce leaking everything to Luke Edwards. I just don't think they're getting anything out of the club anymore. As you've said, they're only getting what the club want them to get, which is next to nothing. Whoever that new subscriber is, Chris Curry in the comments there, I do think we're playing the media on Maddison. I really do.
No, that one, yeah.
Yeah, I think that deal will be done. May not be done at the start of the window, but I think Maddison being at the World Cup will see what can be done in terms of playing with some of the quality footballers he's playing with at the minute. And I just think that he will ask for a move because Leicester are still struggling.
Look at what happened with Declan Rice. If you see his interview.
I did see his interview.
I'm not saying he would come to Newcastle, but he did turn around and basically say that he watches all of his pals with the England team winning, trophies and challenging. And then he said, at the end of the day, when you hang your boots up, it's all about what you've won as a player. So he's almost saying like, come and get us kind of thing, isn't he?
It's a very telling comment, isn't it?
It is. That interview, basically, I saw straight away, a West Ham fan on Twitter had shared it and said, well, that's him definitely away in January. Newcastle aren't getting Declan Rice. He's 100 plus million pounds as a footballer. So we're not quite ready to go for a player like that yet, I don't think. I think Maddison's
he's only 100 plus million pound player because he's English.
Yeah, but he is what he is, isn't it? Maddison might be 50 million or whatever, but his contract will be up, 18 months' time.
Yeah.
But Rice has gone to Chelsea, I think. I've got no doubt.
I think you're spot on. Cheeky bid for Jude Bellingham?
Not a chance. 150 million quid. So I had this chat with my Man City mate, and I said, look, Liverpool have been talking to him for 12 months. And he said, by the way, Man City have also been talking to him for 12 months. Not him directly.
The thing is with that, though, when you look at their midfield, you'd almost expect one of their big midfielders to maybe leave if they were to bring him in. So
Manchester City.
Yeah. If Man City you've just signed Phillips, who can't get in the team. He's been on the bench. They've got Silva.
He's been injured.
I know he's been injured, but I think slightly before that. So I think if Man City were to get him, they'd probably let. I mean, they've done some unbelievable business in terms of who they've shipped out, specifically to Arsenal, the money that they got for the two players that they let go.
Sterling and Jesus and Zinchenko.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, that was around about 140, 130 million for them. And then they bought Haaland for like 60 odd million or whatever it was. So they balanced the books from an FFP point of view perfectly. But I just couldn't see Jude sitting in that midfield the way he plays with the other midfielders that they've got. I think they'd have to let someone go.
Yeah, I think Bernardo might go.
Yeah,
might go. I think I don't know
if
he's
a
a
little
little
bit
homesick.
this season, wasn't he? Yeah.
He's a rumor to be wanting away. So anyway, that's not Newcastle, sadly. But the likes of Jude Bellingham, the likes of Declan Rice are, let's say, a year or two away from Newcastle United being able to sign those kind of players.
Hopefully.
I think you're right. I think one that we think that probably will go through in more than likely in January is the lad from West Ham, Harrison Ashby, who's the young right back. He's Scottish right back. That he's out of contract in the summer, so will probably leave, but based on a compensation deal because of his age. So West Ham may look for a little bit more out of it as a January transfer, but he'd come in very much as a young prospect to sit in behind Kieran Trippier, definitely. And I know there was the other lad from Leeds that was rumoured to be on Newcastle's radar as well, that Cody Drammer. So that certainly Ashby looks like one that will probably happen in January or certainly the summer. And then you've got the South American young lads as well. We've touched on this before, Maximo Peroni and what's the other one? What's the other lad called? Exactly. Andres Santos as well.
Andres Santos, yeah.
Who Juninho, who used to play for Lyon, has described as a monster. So that's high.
I think Chelsea have been linked with him as well, though, haven't they? Santos.
Yeah.
And what's that young kid who are you talking? Is that the guy you just mentioned there? The one who apparently Christian Becerras, ex Newcastle, was in Newcastle talking about that's defensive midfielder. Is that how you mean?
That's Peroni, yeah. So there is that link as well. So I mean, these are all sort of development ones that will come in. They'll probably be big-ish money, I think, for those players because of the high return rate, I think, on them and the prospects that they are. But they're definitely ones for the future, the next year or two, rather than the here and now.
Yeah.
The only other transfer route sort of interest that I had was around Garang Kual, who's sort of due to join the club now in January, or is on his way across now that Australia are out of the World Cup, and the potential that he now goes out on loan. So apparently Newcastle have been inundated with loan offers for him from both UK-based teams in the Championship, but also from teams abroad. So you touched on it a little bit earlier about the work permit thing. I think there's a possible that he might get one, but if not, there's definitely the scope to send him out on loan for a season and a half to get his work permit.
Am I right in saying that if he doesn't get a work permit for us, he's not going to get one to play in the Championship, is he? So he's going to have to go to Europe.
He'd have to, yeah. And the good thing with that is the likelihood is he'll then start to get more game time for Australia, which just makes it so much easier for him to then, once he's a regular for the national side, his work permit becomes much easier to obtain.
Where would what country would you send them to though? Like if there was options like for development for players, where would you send them? So I think I can think of two countries I'd probably either want him to go to.
I think you're probably looking at Spain as a natural option for the type of player that he is.
I'd say Spain or Germany.
I was going to say the Bundesliga as well. If you look at how well the likes of Sancho developed in the Bundesliga, it's almost tailor-made for him.
Yeah,
he's got that in his locker. So I mean, that could be a big move to go to one of the smaller sides in Germany just to get a lot of game time. That could be a really good move for him.
Yeah.
Did you see him land back in Australia with his Newcastle United away shirt on?
Yeah.
I thought that was magic. Here's a little fact for you, which people might have noticed it. I know Chris certainly did because he put the picture up. Before last night, so Gavi played in the knockout round and he's 18 and a bit. Kual, when he came on, was the youngest player to play in a knockout round of a World Cup since Pele. Which is just unbelievable, isn't it? Back in 1960 something for Pele, 64 maybe, 60, 62. Anyway, it was a really good fact, and that's really, makes you quite proud that he's obviously signed for Newcastle now, and he's got some serious potential.
I think there's a lot of clubs now have realised, crap, we've missed the boat here, because we've obviously went under the noses and signed this kid from some top European clubs, and some top English clubs were looking at him as well. So that seems to be something else that we're doing. Obviously, Mark, you just mentioned about the South American lads as well. The fact that we seem to be now spending decent money on these players that have got real potential, and as you said, have got market resale, even if they don't make it into the higher echelons of obviously the first team. It will. I mean, look at the players that we've let go since the new board came in. We've not received a transfer fee yet. The best that we've got is a loan fee for bloody Dubravka. That's the best thing that we've received. So, and the reason why PK just mentioned before, look at the squad. Do you know what I mean? We've had to get these players out the door. Now we're looking at some of these other players. There's still a fair few that you could probably let go on a free or get minimal money for. So there's still a lot of work to do, but we have to remember, as PK said before, this is the second transfer window, heading into the third transfer window in January.
We haven't received a transfer fee for a player for a long time,
Yeah.
Anybody in the comments know who it might be? I think we're going back quite a way,
I'm struggling. Absolutely struggling.
It might be someone like when that Wijnaldum or something like that, or what his other one,
Ayoze Perez.
Perez, yeah, maybe Perez. 30 million.
3 years ago, maybe. You know what I mean?
Somebody drop it in the comments forward.
Yeah, come on, Curry, get googling.
But I agree with Ash's comment. There is the Dan Ashworth effect is building these links across the world to look at these young players. And I mean, you're talking about bringing in players for good money. 300,000, I think it is, for Garand Qual looks an absolute steal already. And you'll get your return on that. And that's something we've talked about before. Certainly with Manchester City, you bring in all of these players and you make a return on them. When you can sell them on to European clubs, to other Premier League clubs for double or treble what you've brought them in for. They may have never played a Premier League game for you, but then you can make an absolute fortune on them in the return.
Said it a few times. Man City made £100 million from their youth academy sales last summer.
Yeah,
that's just crazy, isn't it?
It is, and that's exactly where you want your academy to go. You want to have your scouting network far and wide to bring in these players for next to nothing. You can spend millions on them still, but in the grand scheme of things, next to nothing. And then sell them on for double or treble your money, and it's just paying that production line to keep going. So it is the next step. We'll change track slightly on this one, and I know you touched on this before. PK, about the article that was in The Athletic about the potential of the PIF disposing of Newcastle United, now that the potential is there for them to go and purchase Manchester United. And it was from a guy whose name I can't remember, off there. It was something Chadwick, I think it was. It's in that report about how this is a little small, so you might need to expand your screens, everybody. But the line was, there'd probably be a certain amount of disbelief among Saudi officials having bought Newcastle when they really wanted to buy Manchester United, and there was the talk about them having been offered to have a shareholding in Manchester United, but that was rejected. But they're now be in a position to buy Manchester United. I might be going on a limb here, he goes on to say, but it's not entirely inconceivable that they could dispose of Newcastle and buy Manchester United. Thoughts, gentlemen?
Bullshit.
Waffle. I don't even. So for me, I don't think it even worths warrants talking about, because it's just absolute guff.
So it's clickbait stuff. So Stavely and Murdad and the Saudis did due diligence on Newcastle for 4 years. They've had them for 5 minutes. They're absolutely, definitely going to sell them to flip and spend £5 billion on Manchester United, where there is no return on investment. How big a club can you make? How much can Man United be worth? Surely they're at the top of their value now because they're already got global status as a club. There's no investment. There's no return on investment.
The only thing that anybody that buys Man United, the only thing that they'd need is obviously like a bottomless pit of money to get them back to win, to challenge and win for the title. So it'll all be about almost like what Abramovich done when he came into Chelsea. But you can't do that anymore. You can't spend money like it's monopoly money because of what we've just spoke about before with FFP. So Liverpool and Man United, if they get someone in to buy them, it's going to be really difficult because, like you just said, then PK, their value is high as it's probably ever going to get to.
So with Chelsea, I was thinking about this earlier. So Chelsea were bought for something like £3 billion by that Todd Bowley and his consortium. Why did he buy Chelsea? He bought Chelsea as a toy. He's a bit of a lunatic, isn't he? It's not really very much money for him and his consortium. So PAF are not like that. PAF have bought Newcastle to turn them into a £5 billion club from having paid 350 million for the club. They've put another 110 in, I think, and then another 70 million in. So they've put the best part of 500 million quid in a year in. Firstly, if they're going to go and buy Man United, who's going to buy Newcastle anyway, knowing that PAF are buying Man United? What's the point? It's an absolute non-story. The Saudis, the PAF, are here for the long term with Newcastle United. That you could see it yesterday with the chairman inviting all the 100-strong delegation from Newcastle. They're all in it together. I think they love what they're doing. They can see this massive project and they can make us a global winner. But
PK, I think it's more than just about the football club. And you mentioned before about the layout of the board. The Rubens, we know, are one thing and are very good at one thing, and that's property development and property management. And the chairman's already said they see the northeast and they see the region as developing a region. So don't be expected that in the next decade that it becomes a hotbed for international travel, business, and all the rest of it, because there's a lot of it'll be cheap land compared to the likes of Manchester, the likes of London, and they'll be able to make shitloads of money. So for me, it's a bigger picture than what Manchester, which is very, very developed, because I just live down the road from it. I'm always in Manchester. There's skyscrapers popping up all the time.
Well, Manchester, they're building upwards in Manchester because they can't build sideways. There's no room.
Yeah, I think there's more scope up the northeast.
Very much.
I think there's a bigger. They just spent £800 million to bail out the steel like network in Middlesbrough. So they're not. I think they're going to basically develop the northeast as a bit of a hotbed. For everything really, not just a football club. That's my opinion anyway.
I agree with you. And you know what? It's got people talking, but it's an absolute load of bollocks.
Yeah. No, I agree. It was one of those where we couldn't not talk about it because of sort of high profile it was. Absolutely. The other one on the back of that, you talked about the investment. There was the weird sort of rumor that cropped up from another channel about how the Saudis were paying the council off basically to develop or move St James's and things like that. Utter nonsense again. But again, it's obviously come from somewhere, and it's going to become the new norm, isn't it? This clickbait around the Saudis and around the club to try and sort of push any sort of agenda against them, isn't it?
It's absolutely magnificent. It happened. They're still talking about Man City. Just spreading shite, constantly spreading shite because they're big news. We're big news. They're just, it's a World Cup. There's nothing to talk about in terms of club football. Window's not open yet. It's just all a load of bollocks. I think there's a long-term project here for all three sets of owners. and we'll just enjoy the ride and forget all the nonsense and the noise that's going on around us, because I don't care.
I think they've already started as well, PK. They've already started the them against us mentality, which is great.
Totally.
Because that's what it will end up being. It'll probably be the Premier League against. We'll probably have a best friend in Man City, and that'll probably be it. So yeah, it's great.
It is. It's great, and it's bollocks.
And I think going back to a previous point, I think we might have got our answer. Is Perez and Joselu in the same window?
There was another answer before. Somebody said
for Joselu, wasn't it?
Gibbo said it could be Dan Balasar at 275 grand. They
I've
are.
just seen that one as well.
So it's, you know what? When you're racking your brains to think about the last time we got a transfer fee for a footballer, it's disgusting and disgraceful. That's how
That
shit
just
we've
goes.
been run.
That just goes down to the 14 years of skeleton. I mean, can you remember when Steve Bruce won the? Sorry, I swore there. Steve Bruce won the Manager of the Month award, and it was like him, you know, being himself. And then he did it with all the Steves. And there was like about 5 of them. Then Eddie Howe did one with himself. And then you looked at his backroom team and it was like a 60 strong or something ridiculous like that. The club is just on another level now. It's just brilliant. It's just
they used to have Steve Nixon, who was the only scout at the club, and now they've got about 15 or 20 scouts. Yeah. And it's the same with the commercial executives. They've got a team, they've got a recruitment team, they've got a they've got a team of, they haven't got just Derek Wright as the physio anymore. They've got a team of physios. They've got a team of the doctor.
That's probably why he's been able to retire.
Hi, Mebbies. They've got, it's a club that it's still only 12 months into this takeover, but the infrastructure they've got the new commercial director, Peter Silverstone. They've got Darren Eales as the CEO. They've got Ashworth as the director of football. They've got a proper coach in place with a proper team of coaches around him. It's a whole different football club, isn't it?
Yeah. It's showing how to run a football club, which is something that hadn't been done for a decade beforehand, and it's just it is so refreshing to watch. Yeah,
more than that.
Can you remember when at the beginning of this, like when they first bought the club, and you had certain pundits, namely Paul Merson, saying he doesn't think the new owners have got a clue? It's just baffling that, like you say, you know, you don't necessarily need to know how to run a football club, but you put a team in that is able. I mean, fair play to Eddie Howe for what he did in that first transfer window, acting as a like chief scout, bloody negotiations, and director of football role as well as the manager. So I think, but now obviously all the foundations are in place, and it's just about adding to that. And it seems to be the adding to the team like weekly, really.
Absolutely right. I just want to touch on a quick one. So just a message from Ash here. Just want to, send our condolences, mate. That's, really thankful that this is helping you at such a difficult time, mate. We wish you, wish you all the best. And, like I say, condolences from everybody here. That's dreadful, mate.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, it's the club's being run very, very, very well now. And it's, you touched on it before, investing in the area, and that just brings everybody along with you. You see, I mean, we touched on when the takeover took how much the city was bouncing, and it will just get better as things progress, and as the club progresses and gets better, the city and the surrounding area will just go with it. And it's just, it can't be a bad thing for the area, because it's been left in the crap for so long. Then this can only have positives for us. So
it's a weird one, isn't it? Because the infrastructure and everything that'll go into the city and the regeneration of the city through the Rubens is going to be amazing. But from a football perspective, we're in the sweet spot at the minute. We've got zero expectations, so we're just enjoying this year and probably next year. Anything that comes along, we win a League Cup or we get into the European football, it's a bonus for us at the minute, as opposed to an expectation. Though we'll get to a stage where we become expectant of winning trophies, or there will be more pressure on us to win trophies. And that's when it becomes a lot more pressurized than it is at the minute. So we're in that, let's enjoy the roller coaster, let's enjoy the journey, And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It's just been really good fun compared to what it was. So I think that's going to last for a year or two.
That's the message that's coming from the top, though, as well, isn't it? It's almost
enjoy yourself. Yeah,
it's a project. It's going to take time. Yes, we're doing better, but we want to do even more. So that's where we're saying about today what Jamie Rubin said about, January is difficult to do transfer business. However, if there's a player or there's a deal there to be done, we will spend money. So that we will spend money. And I think going back to your comment before about Man City and things like that, this is why I think, Man United, this is why I think they bought the club, because it's quite unique. It's a one city team. And not only that, it's a huge caption area, really, where if you can tap into that, you could fill a huge stadium if that was to come further down the line. And as I say, there's a whole raft of that potential that the likes of Man United have got is already, they've already done it. How much did they buy them for? 700, 800 million. If they walk away with 6-7 billion, they've made the money that they needed to. The same with Fenway Sports. They bought Liverpool for 300 million. They could sell them for 4 or 5 million.
Billion, yeah.
Billion, yeah. So that's the potential that Newcastle have got. They're not going to go and spend that other money on 5, 6 billion, 7 billion, and then, like you say, what's the return on investment?
It's all a bit weird.
That's why
but I think you're right. We're a unique football club. We are I keep getting this wrong. A one city club, whatever it is.
City.
One club city with, and we're not real. Yes, we're known globally, but we're not a global business. We're not a global club. Man City have become a global club, but they'll always be in the shadow globally of Man United. Maybe not revenue wise, but in terms of people knowing them. You can go to the backwater of Asia. Everybody knows Man United, don't they? They may not know Man City. And I think that the owners know that they can make Newcastle United a global business over time. And that will, they'll get tenfold on their investment and more so in terms of the valuation of it. And then what Man City do is they've sold off little pieces of equity along the way. So they've already made the money back for what they paid for the club. So everything they're doing now is it's free, if that makes sense, because they're now generating the money that they're putting back into the club through having City, what is it? Is it City group of clubs or whatever they want to call it, where they've got New York, Melbourne.
Did you ever see the blueprint? I think it was a documentary or an article about the blueprint about Man City and what they wanted to do, where it was, as you said then, about a group of clubs where they buy a particular club, they play them in the same colours, the scouting network, they get all the best players, they do all that. From a commercial point of view, it's all coming back through the central point. So it'll be interesting if Newcastle try to go down that route, or what it looks like they're trying to do at the moment is breaking into that Arabic group of countries. Yeah. Which is obviously, if you remember, just a couple of days ago, they've now launched the Newcastle Arabic Twitter.
That's right.
So that's that. I was watching it go up and up and up, and within a couple of hours, it had like nearly 30,000 followers. So the team, the group that we've just got, STC, I think it is, they've got, I think it's 5.5 million followers on Twitter. And I think another football, I can't remember what the other, Adidas, sorry, it was Adidas. They've only got 4.8. So says it there in terms of where they're trying to reach to, which is what you said before.
Again, none of us work in, I don't know. I don't work in marketing. I work in sales. Anyone else work in marketing?
No.
We're not marketeers. Okay. We're not genius entrepreneurial business people. We are not a PIF, which is one of the biggest businesses in the world. These guys know what they're doing. They will make us a global brand and a global name in football. But it's more than football. It's that brand. Man United's a brand. Liverpool's a brand. Real Madrid, Barcelona are brands. Are there many more? I don't know. Maybe Juventus. I'm not quite sure. Perhaps. These owners will make Newcastle a global brand over years to come.
Whether we like it or not, when you become a brand, you then start attracting fans that come like to the games, like Barcelona do, like Liverpool do, like
Tourists.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's one of those ones that obviously right now it's like gold dust to try and get a ticket. So that I don't think anybody coming in the way the club's set up now that will happen. But if they do expand the stadium and they do have, in the future, in the next 10 years, we have a much bigger stadium, that might be where they want to get to, where they get those tourists. And we've just talked about the area, which I think it will become that hotbed in the northeast. We might end up getting those fans coming in just to watch the football.
I think we will, yeah. I think that's it. Unfortunately, inevitable.
Yeah.
Speaking of watching football, because I'm conscious of time getting towards the hour. On the subject of watching football, with the last section that I wanted to just cover was around in fixture changes. So we've just had in the sort of the last couple of days that the run of games now that are now televised. I think, did you put in the comments that we had the other day that Newcastle now massive? I think
massive.
Every
9
in a row.
9 out of the next 11 games are on TV
or on television, and
there's 8 in a row. Yeah, I've seen it today. 8 in a row because all of February's has been moved. The FA Cup game.
So
have you got them to bring up, or am I ruining you?
I have got them to bring up, but I've got Palace on the 21st, West Ham on the 4th of February, Bournemouth on the 11th, and Liverpool on the 18th of February. Now all 5:30 kickoffs, so all Sky. And then the Brighton game at the end is now been moved to 12:30, so that's now a BT kickoff on the Saturday afternoon. So and again, this is all revenue. This is all money that's coming into the club because they get extra revenue for being on TV. So
my liver, being a match goer, my liver is gonna be fucked with these 5:30. Excuse me, 5:30 at night kickoffs. For me. But they're great because it's still going to be dark in February, sort of later in that dusky evening, isn't it?
Yeah.
So games under the lights, they're just they're just unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's gonna be happy days. And then for away games, I don't go to many away games. So for the the TV watchers, that's just gonna be brilliant. We're gonna be on all the time. Nobody's gonna be having to get these so-called dodgy streams anymore because we're gonna be on all the time. We're massive.
Absolutely, it's odd, isn't it? Because we sometimes get frustrated when games are changed for TV schedules and stuff. But it almost just goes to show just how well Newcastle are doing. That this is happening with every game. It doesn't matter who you're playing. It doesn't matter who's coming to St James's or where you're traveling to in the country. That the TV companies now go, yeah, we want them on because they can, they've seen just exactly what everybody else is seeing, and it just shows that it's like it is a good tick in the box. It's just say, look, you are doing so well. We want you on TV. So
I also think as well, Mark, what you've got to think about the international audience as well, and what you're going to see there is now all of a sudden overnight, Newcastle's become one of the main teams to watch in Saudi Arabia, for example. So in terms of obviously them sorting out all these issues with beIN Sports and obviously being able to show the Premier League games there now. In terms of everything that's going on, you just look at the viewing figures there. They'll probably be one of the most watched. We mentioned before, everybody knows who Man City is, Man United, Liverpool, and all those top sides. But in terms of us, we would be ahead of the next pack now due to what's going on in terms of the viewing figures across the world, I think.
I'm telling you now, what could possibly go wrong come the end of February when we're on the telly all the time? All of a sudden, we'll lose a few games. We'll drop out of that top 4. We're no longer massive anymore, are we?
Oh, is that the PK kiss of death on this? Hopefully not. Hopefully not. But no, I think we'll leave it there. Obviously, it's a good place to finish up. Obviously, thank you to everybody for watching tonight. Obviously, if you're on catch up as well, thank you for watching too. Obviously, the subscribers for us have been absolutely brilliant over recent months, and we're heading on now towards 2,100. We're sitting just below it. So if you haven't already, hit the like button and obviously hit subscribe. We will usually be on Mondays and Wednesdays. Monday night for What's Going On, and then on a Wednesday night for our Evermore podcast, along with pop-up videos along the way, transfer rumours, little news pieces and stuff like that. So Keep it evermore, guys. Thank you very much, guys, for joining me tonight. And yeah, we'll see you soon.
Cheers,
Thank you.
everybody. See you
Take
later.
care.